How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be a different type of video than what I'm used to making. Normally, I just make my predictions and then recap video, but for each week. This week, I am going to do a playoff machine scenario, which pretty much how it works is I pick a winner for each game, and based on the winners, it shows the seeding on the playoffs for both the AFC and the NFC. And I pretty much, as I pick a winner, it just updates automatically, so I can go through all the scenarios. Like, if this team wins, is this team in the playoffs? Like, are they going to make it? What seed are they? Things like that. So, kind of a different type of video. Week 18 is always crazy. Obviously, some teams locked in for seeding, like the Chiefs, for example. Unfortunately, the Eagles, another one. I'm not a big Eagles guy, so kind of unfortunate with that too. Um, Not surprised to see my team not on here, the Patriots. God, we're terrible. Um, but yeah, I will pretty much just jump into the video here. So again, how it works, I guess game by game, I'll just predict a winner. I guess I'll do a bunch of different scenarios. I guess I'll do how I think this week's gonna play out and predict all my winners and see how that makes the playoff bracket. I guess is one way I'll do it, and then we'll kind of experiment from there. Just take it freely. All right, so yep, very confident the Ravens going to win, so that'll keep them at 3. So notice, so here's a good example. So the Steelers were just the 6th seed, but if they lose, and I just picked them to lose, they fall to the 6th seed, or the Steelers are the 5th seed, then they fell to the 6th seed. That's maybe I said that, I don't know, but there's a good example of that. It just updates automatically. This game's meaningless as far as seeding. This game could be meaningful, but probably not because the Bucks are probably going to win. Here, I'll just quickly pick all the teams that I think are going to win, and then see how the playoff bracket pans out from there. Let's see here. Jets. Yes, I had the Jets in the upset. Um, uh, oh God, Lions Vikings. That's such a hard game to pick. Okay, so based on my predictions, which my Week 18 picks video I just uploaded on my channel and website, so check that out by the time you're watching this if you're interested. These are all my predicted winners for this week, Week 18. Again, weird week with to predict with the teams being walked in, some teams playing their starters, things like that. Really, the only upset I have is Jets over Dolphins, and then I guess Vikings over Lions too. But that is literally a coin flip game for me. Chiefs Broncos can go either way, but pretty much here is the playoff bracket based on my predicted winners. So let's see. Chiefs obviously locked into 1, so I'm pulling for the Bengals to get the 7th seed. I think Denver's going to win, but I definitely can see the Chiefs winning even with their backups and Carson Wentz and company in there. So Denver, there is a scenario where if Denver loses, okay, so yeah, we'll experiment in a minute, but I'll just go through the bracket now. There's a scenario where Denver loses and they still get in, but simply they have a win and in. They've had it for a couple weeks, but they still have it now. They just have a simple win and in scenario. Denver, if they do get in, they're locked into the 7th seed, though. The farthest the Steelers can drop is 6th. Yeah, they can't drop below 6. Chargers, the highest they can get is 5. They can't go lower than 6 either, so they're locked into either the 5-6 seed. Steelers and Chargers are going to want to do anything they can to win because, I mean, Jim Harbaugh, I'm sure, is looking at it like he doesn't give a shit what team the Chargers play. He just wants to win. Just, if they're going to want to beat any team, they're going to have to beat any team. Probably is his mentality to get to their ultimate goal of the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, I don't think the Chargers are going to be winning the Super Bowl this year for them. But they could make some noise in the playoffs. We'll see. At least as of now, I don't think they're going to. We'll have to see how it plays out. But I definitely think they're a long shot to win it this year. The Steelers, on the other hand, definitely want to get the 5 seed. They do not want to go. All right, so basically what I'm saying is the Chargers and the Steelers both want to get the 5 seed. Obviously, because it's the higher seed, but you 100% would rather play the Texans and the Ravens, especially the Chargers, because the Steelers at least match up with the Ravens fairly well. They split the season series. And then even though the second meeting, the Ravens technically blew the Steelers out, won by multiple scores, the Steelers, that game, they were pretty hurt. They were pretty banged up. They had some guys in there that were, normally don't play as much as they were. And it was a relatively close game up until the end. The Steelers were able to tie it, and then that pick six happened. Or maybe not tie it, but they were on a drive to potentially tie it, and then that pick six happened from Russell Wilson. But so it wouldn't be as bad if the Steelers play the Ravens. The Ravens would probably win, but we'll have to see how it plays out. The Chargers got blown out by the Ravens, and it was a close game, but you kind of felt that the Ravens were gonna win the game probably the entire time throughout it. Even though the Chargers were up 10-0 early in the game, and from that point on, the Ravens kind of took control. But basically, in short, what I'm trying to say is, obviously, both teams want the 5 seed. For both teams, the Texans are 100% the matchup they want over the Ravens. Especially the Chargers is basically what I'm trying to say there. Although they're probably looking at it, both teams again, like they don't give a shit who they play. They're gonna have to beat the best, so they want to get to where they're at, especially Jim Harbaugh. But who knows? Basically, they both want to play the Texans. The Texans are definitely the weakest team in the AFC. I think you can make an argument that Denver is, but honestly, I think the Texans are playing, well, whoever the 7th seed is, whether it's Denver, Miami, or Cincy. It's either going to be the 7th seed or the Texans. I think definitely all the other teams in the AFC side of the bracket are better than the Texans. If the Texans, I think if they win in the first round, it'll be an upset. I think their absolute ceiling is the divisional round. The divisional round, Jesus. If they get past the divisional round, I will be absolutely shocked. So yeah, this is how, the Chiefs locked into 1, Bills locked into 2, Ravens, all they have to do is just beat the Browns, and they're the 3 seed. So I feel really confident that we get, obviously the first seed's guaranteed, the Chiefs, Bills guaranteed 2. I feel really confident the Ravens are going to get 3. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, I feel confident about with this order. Obviously 1 and 2 are locked in. 4 is locked into with the Texans. It's just 5, 6, 7. Steelers and Chargers are locked in, but who's going to get the 5 seed? Who's going to get the 6 seed between these two teams? I feel fairly decent. It's going to be the Chargers, but who knows? I for sure think they're going to beat the Raiders. But will the Steelers lose to the Bengals? Who knows? The Steelers, if they win, they're the 5 seed, even if the Chargers win, because they'll both be 11-6, and the Steelers will have the tiebreaker because they beat the Chargers early in the year. And then the 7th seed, again, I have Denver, but we'll experiment with that in a minute here. So that's the AFC bracket based on my picks. The NFC side, so this is probably controversial. I have the Vikings beating the Lions. I'm not confident in that at all. If you look at my Week 18 predictions video, I kind of nearly talked myself into picking the Lions. Even though on paper the Vikings should win, my gut's kind of telling me Lions. I'm kind of going against my gut a bit on that game. But I'll experiment with that in a minute. But obviously there is a major difference between who wins and loses this game. So yeah, the 1 seed is either the Vikings or the Lions. In my scenario, it's the Vikings. The Packers, in my scenario, are the 7th seed at 12-5. That is absolutely insane. 12-5 is you can argue that's good enough for the first seed. Maybe it would be a bit of a weaker 1 seed, you can argue, but still, that at 12-5 is, you can argue that's a 1 seed record. The Titans got it in 2021 at 12-5. They were the 1 seed. So yeah, you can argue that. That's just, that is just absolutely insane that the Packers are a 7 seed. And I think I had them as the 7 seed in my preseason picks at 11-6. So most of my preseason predictions have gone to absolute hell, but I actually did fairly decent with the NFC seeding predictions for my preseason picks. So at least I can say that. I was pretty close for the most part. Well, I definitely have the Commanders in there, so I was obviously off on that one. But in this scenario, Washington gets the 6th seed. Washington is locked into the playoffs. It's just they're either going to get 6 or 7. So yeah, in this scenario, they play the Bucs, the 3 seed. The Lions, because they lose against the Vikings, are the 5 seed. The Rams are the 4 seed. They're locked in. They're either getting 3 or 4. Eagles are locked into the 2 seed. Boy, if Packers Eagles happens round one, that is most people would pick the Eagles. I probably would too, but I would not at all be surprised if the Packers pull off the upset and win that game. It's either going to be them or Washington that plays the Eagles. Um, Washington would be a dangerous 7 seed too because they just beat the Eagles, even though I think they were a bit fortunate in that game to do so. Maybe got a bit lucky, it felt like, especially with the Devontae Smith drop. Not to take anything away from the Commanders, but the Eagles, I think, were due for a loss, and that was that game for them. But that would be an interesting game because even the first game in Philly was pretty close, even though the Eagles didn't play that great. And then they kind of turned it on in the fourth quarter. Then the Commanders, they were down 16 late. They got a touchdown, 2-point conversion with like 30 seconds left to make it more respectable. But regardless, that'll be an interesting matchup. The Eagles are going to get a bad draw either way. If you're the Eagles, obviously a 7 seed should be an ideal, not walk in the park, but you should win the game, not too stressfully. For example, if Denver gets the 7 seed, I think the Bills will blow them out. I don't think the game will be close. I think the Bills would blow the Broncos out. I don't think the game would be close at all. The Eagles Packers, I think this game would probably go down to the wire. And even though I'd probably give the edge to the Eagles, it would be much more stressful than a typical 7 seed would be. The Commanders would probably be a close game too. I'd probably feel a bit more confident with the Eagles beating the Commanders than the Packers, but who knows? That's regardless, it's going to be a stressful game for even if the Eagles I don't think they'll blow the Packers out, but if they blow the Commanders out, it'll still probably be a stressful game for a 7 seed. So yeah, these are my predictions. These are my predictions for week 18, how my bracket would look. If my predictions are right, I'm sure I'll get some games wrong. But I guess now I'll start just experimenting. This is kind of the fun part of it. So, okay, feel really confident with the Ravens, but for example, let's say the Browns somehow pull off the upset. So there is a scenario if the Ravens there is a scenario where the Ravens lose to the Browns, and if the Steelers still beat, or the Bengals rather, beat the Steelers, the Ravens still sustain the 3 seed and win the AFC North. But let's say the Steelers win. Okay, see what happens here? The Ravens are now the 5th seed. They lose the AFC North. The Steelers win, and the Ravens are now at Houston, which again is the ideal matchup you're going to want to get, is the Texans. And the Chargers are at the Steelers, is the 6th seed. So that will shake things up. Unfortunately, I really do not see the Browns winning. So I think that the Ravens are locked into 3 pretty much. I feel very confident in that. The 5-6 seed, I feel decent about the Steelers losing to the Bengals. I should say the Bengals winning rather. But if the Steelers just have to win and they're the 5 seed, even if the Chargers win or if they lose, you can see here if they lose, they're still locked into 6. If the Steelers win. But yeah, I feel decent. The Bengals are going to win, so I think the Steelers are going to get the 6 seed. But who knows? This game's meaningless as far as seeding. All right, the way the Falcons can get into the playoffs, they can't get in as a road wild card team. They're going to have to win the division. So A, they have to win their game against the Panthers. So let's say that happens. I think they will win their game against the Panthers. Then B, they're going to need the Bucks to lose. They need the Saints to pull off the upset. Let's say that happens. So you see here, the Bucks are the 3 seed. If the Falcons win and the Bucks lose, they go all the way from the 3 seed to being out of the playoffs. The Falcons would win the NFC South and be the 4 seed. And then whichever team, the Lions or Vikings, would be feasting on. All right, well, we obviously don't want to play a wild card game, but yep, we'll happily play the Falcons, who've just snuck in and have, a rookie quarterback, Michael Penix, in there. The Falcons could be dangerous. 100%. If this scenario happens, which I don't, I feel pretty confident the Bucs are going to beat the Saints. I would, barring something drastic changing, I would 100% pick the Vikings or Lions to beat the Falcons. So the Falcons can't get in. It's unlikely, though. I think that the Bucs will end up winning. If they tie, though. Okay, so even if the Falcons win and they tie the Saints Bucs, which I really don't think is happening, the Bucs would still get in as the 3 seed. This game's meaningless as far as playoff positioning. Although this is a hard game to predict. The Bills and my team, it's meaningless as far as playoff seeding, though. As you can see, even if we win, which the Bills play in their backups, we have a decent chance at doing so. They're still locked into the 2 seed. This game's also meaningless. This game is meaningful. So the Packers can get the 6 seed if the Cowboys win and the Packers win. I feel really confident that what the hell are they there? That the Packers will beat the Bears. The Packers are 100% going to want to push for the 6 seed because they would play the Bucs rather than the Eagles. Even though the Bucs are obviously not an easy out, I think they're a lesser team than the Eagles. So, especially in the first round, you do not want to play the Eagles in round one if you're if any team, but if you're the Packers, the Bucs are definitely a better draw for the Packers than the Eagles, is what I'm saying here. So the Packers can get the 6 seed, but it involves Dallas upsetting the Commanders, which unfortunately I do not see that happening. I had the Packers winning, so unfortunately for Green Bay, I had them as the 7 seed going on the road to Philly to play the Eagles in the wild card game. This game is meaningless as far as seeing the Eagles are locked into 2. Just outline this scenario. The Commanders could lose to the Packers and they'll still get the 6 seed. The Bears can somehow pull off the upset. I don't see that happening. Let's see if they tie. Well, I guess if they tie, the Packers can get the 6 seed, but that's not going to, I really doubt that's going to happen. Of course, it's possible, I guess, but I think the Packers are going to blow them out. I feel confident in that. But I also feel decent with the Commanders winning, which the Packers, again, as a 7 seed, is going to be brutal at 12-5. Seahawks, Rams. This is an interesting scenario because the Rams can get the 3 seed. All the Rams have to do is simply win the game, and they're the 3 seed, which you would much rather play either Washington, the 6 seed, which in my scenario is Washington, or the Packers. Yeah, the Packers are a bad draw for anyone, especially in round one, because even though they're a lower seeded team, I think they're more than capable. Like, it would not at all surprise me at all if they were making a run to. I wouldn't be too shocked if they even made it to the Super Bowl. Maybe even won it, you can argue, this year. I had the Packers in the NFC Championship game as a 7 seed in my preseason picks. I definitely think that's a scenario that's not too unrealistic. Yeah, if you're the Rams, you 100% want to play either especially I think Washington out of the playoff teams. Again, I probably seem like a Commanders hater. I picked against them in a decent amount of games this year. I hope I'm not sounding like a Commanders hater because they've been a really good story this year. Obviously, overexceeded expectations. Shane Daniels has been balling out, fun to see. But I think out of the NFC playoff teams, Washington is probably the weakest one. Maybe you can argue Tampa, especially with the injuries, but I would probably say Washington is the weakest team, even though Tampa has 2 less wins than them. Well, according to my predictions here, I had them both winning. But still, my point is you're going to want to play Washington or the Packers, even though the Packers are a really bad draw, over the Lions or Vikings, I think. Now, you can argue that the Rams, so again, let's say the Rams are playing their backup, so I assume they're going to lose the game. We'll see, though. I think the Rams will get the 4 seed. They're going to play the loser of Vikings-Lions. That is a horrible draw for a wild card round. You're going to be hosting a 14-win team on wild card weekend. So that is a bad draw for the Rams. Now, you can argue that the Rams beat the Vikings early in the year. It was in controversial fashion with the safety, with the safety, but there was a missed face mask that should have been called. I don't think the Vikings are going to win the game anyway. They would have had to go pretty much nearly 100 yards to tie the game, get a 2-point conversion. Just the way the game was going, the Rams were in control. They definitely deserved to win that game. And the Lions, the Rams were also in control of that game, it felt like. The Lions were a bit fortunate to win that game. So you can argue that the Rams beat the Vikings, and they probably should have beaten the Lions. You can argue that they might want to see the Lions and Vikings in round one versus they lost to the Packers, and they didn't play the Commanders at all this year, right? Off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure no. Let me double check, though. Let's see. Yeah, they didn't play the Commanders this year. So yeah, you can argue that they'd rather play either Detroit or Minnesota. But again, the playoffs are different. You don't want to base too much off the first time teams play officially in the playoffs. So the Rams are in a weird position because ideally you want to get the 3 seed because you're the higher seed. You hypothetically and theoretically have an easier path to where you want to get to the Super Bowl. But they're resting their back or they're resting their starter. I don't know why I keep saying resting their back. They're resting their starters. So it's an interesting scenario there because they can get the 3 seed. They probably would win the game against the Seahawks if they played their starters. So who knows though? I could see them losing anyway. But I think they would beat the Seahawks if they played the starters and they would get the 3 seed and have been what I think at least and hypothetically would be an easier path to the Super Bowl. But it looks like they're just content with the 4 seed and just hosting a playoff game. Also, if you get the 3 seed, that slightly ups your chances that you could host more playoff games in the next 2 rounds. Not by a great amount, but at least some at least. So yeah, that is kind of an interesting scenario with the Rams just being content with the 4 seed. Excuse me, I'm dying over here. And Sean McVay basically just saying, we'll just play anyone, whoever we get on the schedule, we'll play them. We're gonna have to beat the best anyway. So I respect that, but I'm a little surprised still they're not really pushing for the 3. Of course, they're going to try to win the game, but with their starters in there, obviously, we give them a much better chance to do so. So yeah, that's an interesting scenario there. Dolphins Jets. This is another interesting scenario. So this game, the Dolphins, even if they win this game, if the Broncos win the game, they're still in the playoffs. They're still the 7 seed. They have the tiebreaker over the Dolphins. Heat suspending Jimmy Butler. Oh boy. Butler missed 7 games for conduct detrimental to team. I think they literally just said earlier they're not going to suspend him. God, what a shit show that is. Jimmy Butler wanting out of there. As a Celtics fan, that's satisfying to see as I call them, mid-Miami Heat. Their roster's just stacked with a bunch of 70, somewhere in the 70 overall role players. Called them the mid-Miami Heat. So that's satisfying to see. But anyway, back to this video. What was I just saying? Oh yeah. So Dolphins, Jets, they could win the game. The Dolphins could, and they're still not in if the Broncos win. However, this is where it's interesting. If the Chiefs win and the Dolphins win, Miami makes the playoffs. You can say the Miami Dolphins might be the mid-Miami Dolphins this year too. You can argue. But here's the kicker. I had the Jets upsetting the Dolphins. I don't know why I just blanked on the team name for a second. I'm not too confident in that, but let's just say more likely than not, the Dolphins should win the game, let's say. So the Dolphins would get the 7 seed if the Chiefs beat the Broncos, which remember, the key to that game is the Chiefs are playing their backups. So the Broncos should win the game playing their starters. Basically, I guess the base for that logic is the Broncos probably should have beaten the Chiefs in Arrowhead earlier with both teams playing their starters. The Chiefs made the play to get the blocked field goal, but the Broncos should have probably won that game. So if they, kind of get the game, I don't want to say stolen from them, but I guess I'll say stolen from them. I can't think of another word. When both their starters were playing, both team starters, they're at home against the Chiefs backups. You would figure their starters should take care of business. Hopefully that line of logic made sense. Line of logic. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but hopefully I'm making sense here. I'm not like mentally insane. Hopefully you guys are following along with my logic there. But I definitely could see the Chiefs pulling off the upset. Even though like the whole year I kind of was in my head thinking that the Broncos were going to win this game. I don't know, just things have changed, and part of my gut is a bit feeling the Chiefs, but I don't know. I just can't predict it to happen. But if it does, that opens up a bunch of scenarios. So the Broncos, again, Broncos have a simple win and in scenario. If they win, they're in. That means the Dolphins and Bengals are out. If the Chiefs win the game, and the Dolphins win, that means the Dolphins are in, regardless of the result of Bengals Steelers. Let's say my prediction comes true of the Jets winning the game. That means the Bengals are in the playoffs at 9-8. They sneak in as the 7th seed. So again, my prediction, I'm predicting the Jets pull off the upset against the Dolphins. However, I had the Broncos winning. So the Bengals need three things to happen for them to make the playoffs. They need to win. You can check that box off. I have them winning. They need the Dolphins to lose. I have that happening. So check that box off. But they need the Broncos to lose. I do not have that happening. I had the Chiefs or the Broncos winning rather. So the Bengals in my scenario get two of the three things they need to happen to make the playoffs. They fall just short. Let's say there's a tie. Okay, not going to happen, I don't think, but Denver would still make the playoffs if there's a tie. Let's do some crazy scenario. Let's say there's a tie in all these games. Okay, then yep, Denver would still make it. Obviously, that's not going to happen. Well, who knows? But not likely to happen. A tie in general, but luckily or likely three ties, and the one scenario the team's fighting for the 7th seed. But yeah, so the only way Cincy gets in is if the Jets win, pull off the upset, which I'm predicting them to, and the Chiefs win. I'm going to tell you right now, if the Bengals get in the playoffs, look out. There's a good chance they could just get blown out in the wild card round, but if they somehow pull off the upset against the Bills, look out, Chiefs. Obviously, I'm talking about the Packers being a dangerous 7th seed. Cincy is also a very dangerous 7th seed. I mean, their offense can beat anyone in the league. It's just their defense has been so bad most of this year. But if their defense can figure some things out and even just be mid, look out teams. They can make some serious noise. I think we can all agree out of the Bengals, Dolphins, and Broncos, the Bengals would be the most dangerous 7th seed with the chance to pull off some upsets. If Denver or Miami gets in, I 100% am picking the Bills to win the game. I honestly would. If Denver gets in, I would predict a Bills blowout win probably. And if Miami gets in, the Bills, I could see them blowing the Dolphins out. Well, if Tua is not playing, I would predict that. But the first game against the Bills, the Dolphins obviously played abysmal. Their offense, that was the game Tua got hurt. That was not a pretty game, obviously, for them. But the second game, they obviously, or honestly, didn't play their best game. They had, well, I mean, obviously, but I mean, in terms of like self-inflicted wounds, they had drops, miscommunications. So that a good part of the blowout was honestly on the Dolphins just not being like prepared or just out of sync, something like that. The second game in Buffalo, the Dolphins nearly pulled off the upset. So that would be interesting if they played for the third time. Divisional games are hard to predict. The last time they played, it went right down to the wire in Buffalo. Obviously, that was with Tua, though, so Tua would have to be healthy. I really would not predict them to, stand much of a chance. But that could be interesting. Denver, I think they would get blown out. Cincy, I could see them blowing out, but I could see it being close. I could see Cincy pulling off the upset. Who knows? Oh, boy. So, yeah, a lot of scenarios with the 7th seed in the AFC there. Although there was the 2022 wild card game where the Bills were the 2 seed, the Dolphins were the 7 seed, and they had Skylar Thompson started them. The Dolphins did at quarterback, and he nearly pulled off the upset. It was a shootout, and the Bills barely won that game. So maybe we could get something weird if the Dolphins make it and Tyler Huntley starts, although Tyler Huntley is, I think, better than Skylar Thompson by a good margin. But I don't know. I don't mean to get too ahead of myself here. I just really hope the Bengals can make it. I'm pulling for them. I'm a Joe Burrow fan, so I'm pulling for the Bengals to make it. Definitely think they can make some noise. The only problem is I hate the Chiefs so much. I think the only teams that have a chance, okay, well, I guess every team has a chance, but I think the teams with the best chance at knocking the Chiefs out are the Bills and Ravens. Obviously, if the Bengals want to play the Chiefs, they're going to have to eliminate the Bills. So there goes one team. The team between them and the Ravens that I would say probably is the better chance at beating the Chiefs. So that would be a problem. Cincy, boy, I could see them pulling off the upset against the Chiefs if they play them in the divisional round. That's obviously a big if. They're going to have to make the playoffs, which they need some luck, and they're going to have to win against the Bills, which is going to be a tall task in itself. So a lot of scenarios there. Um, Again, I'll go back to my original scenario here. Chargers Raiders. So again, I went over this a bit earlier with the Steelers. Chargers are locked in. It's just in terms of are they going to get the 5 or 6 seed? Let's say the Raiders somehow pull off the upset. Even if the Steelers lose, Steelers get the 5 seed. So again, they have the tiebreaker after beating the Chargers earlier in the year. I really do not see the Chargers losing to the Raiders, but who knows? Again, the Steelers just have a simple win and you're the 5 seed, regardless of the Chargers winning or losing. I think the Bengals will win though again. So there's that scenario for the Chargers. Niners, Cardinals. This game's meaningless in terms of seeding. Okay, obviously here's the big one. Talked about it a bit, but Vikings, Lions. This is the big scenario. The winner of this game is the 1 seed. Actually, what happens if it ends in a tie? Okay, again, I don't think it's going to end in a tie, but Detroit would be the 1 seed. So the winner of this game is the 1 seed. The loser is the 5 seed in a 14-win 5 seed on the road, causing some people to talk about how the NFL should be fixing its seeding, basically. So yeah, again, if the Vikings win, which I'm predicting them to, again, not confident in that at all. I think that's a coin flip game. The Vikings are the 1 seed, the Lions are the 5 seed. If the Lions win, the Lions are the 1 seed, the Vikings are the 5 seed. Obviously, there is a major, major difference between the 1 and 5. Maybe I talked about it in this video earlier. This is my third video I'm recording today, so I'm like, I forget what I said in what video. Bear with me if I already went over this, but obviously there's a huge difference between 1 and 5. 1, you get a bye, so you're automatically in the divisional round. You get a home playoff game. If you win, you get another home playoff game. If you win that, you're in the Super Bowl. You're just going to win 2 games and you're in the Super Bowl. The 5 seed has to win at least 1 road game and then likely 2 more, barring the 6 or 7 seed somehow advances both rounds. So yeah, obviously a major difference between the 1 and the 5. I think the Lions could use it more. Troy Aikman talks about it on Monday Night Football. At the Lions, they had an early bye, the earliest you can have a bye, week 5. They're obviously dealing with a bunch of injuries, more so offensively or defensively rather. So they got to heal up. It does look like they might get some guys back though. David Montgomery might be coming back. I think I saw Alex Anzalone might be coming back. Aiden Hutchinson keeps saying the Lions make the Super Bowl. He'll be back. So I think they do need it more than the Vikings. I definitely think they could make a Super Bowl run, even though it'd be very, very difficult with all the defensive injuries if they get the 5 seed. But I do think they probably need it more than the Vikings. If the Vikings get the 5 seed, could I see them making a Super Bowl run? I would probably pick them to beat the 4 seed, which is either going to be Tampa or the Rams, even though the Rams beat them earlier in the year. But then they would likely have to play, again, Eagles, Packers, I think could go either way, but they would probably have to play the Eagles on the road. I'd probably pick Philly in that game, but I could see them beating Philly. I think that might be a bit of a stretch. I don't know though. Oh God. And either them or they'd have to host let me run a bunch of scenarios through my head here. So yeah, they'd beat the Rams. I'd probably pick the Bucs to win. So then, yeah, okay, so they would either play Tampa or the Eagles. If they play Tampa, I'd pick them to beat the Bucs in the second round. If they, barring injury, of course, or something changing, if they play they also could play the Packers, which I'd probably pick them against the Packers, but honestly, I don't know. That I would have to think about it. Packers, I don't know. I might pick the Packers. I don't know. I have to think about that game. And then they either have to play, they'd probably play the Lions because let me think here. Who the hell else would be here? They'd eliminate the Rams. They'd play the Bucs. The Commanders would be eliminated. What am I missing here? Hang on. Okay, no, okay, I know what I'm missing. Okay, so there's a good chance the Lions and Vikings, regardless which team wins, they're playing each other in round two because again, which either team wins the one seed, the whichever team wins. Jesus, I'm having a seizure. Whichever team wins this game is the one seed. The loser the five seed. The So yeah, there's a very high probability these teams meet in the divisional round because either the Commanders or the Packers would have to upset one of their either the Eagles or the Bucks in their respective matchups, and then the one seed either the Vikings or the Lions would play them. But again, I feel decent that the Commanders are going to get the sixth seed. I will probably pick the Bucks to beat them. So that's eliminates that scenario. And then the Packers at the seventh seed, they would have to beat the Eagles in an upset, and then they would be on the road against the one seed. And then whoever the five seed is between Minnesota or Detroit, assuming both teams advance in the wild card round, uh, whichever one is the five seed, obviously the one seed would have the bye. They would play the other remaining team. So a bunch of different scenarios here. It can be kind of confusing. See, obviously a diehard NFL fan. I've been watching the NFL way too long, know way too much about it. So I kind of already am familiar with the format, but even for me, it can be a bit confusing sometimes trying to run through all these scenarios. So hopefully this video wasn't too confusing. I think I got all the scenarios laid out pretty much. Most of these teams, actually, literally every team in this bracket is locked in except the seventh seed in the AFC. It's either going to Denver, which I have it going to Miami or Cincy. Again, hope it's Cincy, but I have it going to Denver. Outside of that, it's just some seeding for certain teams that's not locked in. But everyone in this bracket, as it looks right now, is in except Denver is not guaranteed. It's either again them, Miami, or Cincy. Just the seeding that needs to be decided. So yeah, I think I ran through all the scenarios. Uh, yeah, so it's definitely going to be very interesting to see what happens here. Um, yeah, going to be very interesting to see what happens. Oof, a lot of different scenarios I ran through. My brain is like kind of in pain right now. Again, this being my third video I'm recording for today, but that's okay. Love football. Talk about it forever. But anyway, yeah, pretty sure I got all the scenarios. Hopefully this video wasn't too confusing. Hopefully you guys followed along. Uh, wasn't talking, a different language or something like that. But yeah, I will end the video here. I feel like there was something I was going to say and kind of blanking on it now. I don't know. All right, I will end the video here. Be sure to check out my Week 17 recap or Week 18 predictions video if you guys are interested. But yeah, I'll end the video here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed kind of a different type of video than what I normally make. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Again, not too lost. Hopefully you followed along with me. And yeah, hopefully good week of football. We all enjoy it. Good luck betting, fantasy, if whatever reason you're still playing fantasy with your picks. All that good stuff, as I always say. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good one. Take it easy, guys.